All right, Chug. So I mentioned to you maybe a week ago, that flipped through the channels and I started Legally Blonde on. Um, and for some reason, I just was like, all right. So I left it on and I watched through it, And then I was looking on Wikipedia, just seeing like who else, like who made it and stuff, and I realized it said July 2001. And I was like, oh shit, man, that was 20 years ago. And I'm thinking of all the other movies that came out during that time, and I saw all those movies in theaters. Like me and my friends would go. I had my first like date type thing, the group date thing. It was like that same era, and I'm surprised I didn't see Legally Blonde. But um, so it's funny because you actually watched it back then. You said you rented it, and you used to watch it.
Yeah. Actually, I went to the movies to see the sequel. I think that was like 2004. I can't remember that one like
So like,
vividly. I
hey,
don't. I recall it not being like good. So
hey, one step at a time. I finally saw part one. Give me time to watch that, and then I'll go do the.
you ain't
Then I'll
missing
see
nothing with part two.
that. It was like red, white, and blue or something. Like that. It was like red, white, and blue too, or something. I remember it being something with like patriotic.
It
But
was
anyway,
like Mister Smith goes to Washington,
oh, you're
but
right.
Mister
Uh,
Smith was Elwood's.
Elwood is the character's name. It's actually based off a book. I didn't know all this stuff. It's like a series of books, which is soon to be a very familiar trend in movies, especially like these type of female protagonist movies. But Reese Witherspoon, this is like her. This is like her jump off. This is her like big moment. She was in like American Psycho. I remember. I saw that before that, which was like it's a weird movie to say.
I would say Cruel Intentions was like her.
See, that's another movie that around that time. I think my buddy rented it, or like he took his like sister's copy and we watched it. And like Samuel Blair, was it Samuel Blair in Legally Blonde?
She was in Legally Blonde as well. Yeah.
Right. All right. So she's part of that crew. It was like the brunettes versus the blondes. So that's like the theme. All right. So going into this, I'm watching it and I'm like, my first, I'm like, it feels like not a fairy tale, but just it felt weird. It felt like I know that like she was about to graduate college, and she was like kicking ass 4.0, but she was another popular thing at the time, fashion major, fashion like merchandising major. But the way they were acting, I was like, is this high school? It felt like high school kids. Um, but yeah, that was like a popular thing. Like it's always like I want to get into fashion, and I was thinking about Clueless. A lot of those. It reminded me of Clueless too. So that's another thing where like I inched closer and started watching it more. Um, but yeah, so you watched it recently?
No, I haven't seen her in like a long time, but I do
Oh,
recall it was like the she was going to like UCLA or like USC, like a Southern California school, where she met or her boyfriend was the guy.
hmm
It's funny because that guy, like, if it was real life, like that dude would have been like the OD, like Mitt Romney, and then go turn it up to 11 and become like the OD, like Trump supporter, like if he was a real person today.
well, he's like a son of a governor or something like that, and then
Yeah, so I guess like he went to the school as his undergrad, to get like his pre-law degree, and then he went to Harvard to get his law degree, and he in the beginning of the movie, like he kind of did it under the guise of like, oh, like I gotta go to Harvard to get my law degree, so I'm breaking up with you, etc., etc. So
well, she thought he was gonna propose to her, so that's like the whole like in a fairy tale where she's like, it's gonna finally happen. I'm gonna graduate. We're gonna get married, and he just like, sorry, babe, we're over. So
mhm.
that's the whole like inciting incident. So yeah, so then that's where it is where you were saying.
Yeah, and then she decides to like follow him there, and then she makes like a video presentation and for the Harvard people or whatever, and I guess like it was like one woman, it was like five people, and like one of them was a woman, but like the other four were like guys. So it involved like a video of her like talking about her like good aspects or whatever, whatever. But she's wearing like a bikini
Yeah, it's like
and
a
she's
pool
hot.
shot.
yeah, and so all the guys say I, and like the one woman, the one like dissenting woman's like no, like, and she goes to Harvard, and then like to her surprise, like he's in a relationship with another girl that's like more uptight and studious, which was played by Selma Blair. So as you said, it was that Cruel Intentions reunion, but they were kind of playing like the opposite because Reese Witherspoon and Cruel Intentions was kind of like the uptight prude, and Selma Blair was like the hypersexualized girl. And in this one, like Selma Blair was like the prude, and Elle was more sexualized, so to speak.
Yeah, but when I was watching, it was like, oh, I felt like they were doing clicks, and it was like, oh, the poor blonde girl, like I can prove, like she's chasing the guy, like, oh, I'm gonna prove, I'm gonna win him back, and it's kind of like, that's her, the whole like motive is for her to, what you think is the motive is for her to, win the guy, which is like very rom com style,
Hmm.
but but then like she uses her strengths, and overcome like like the prejudice thing, like because she's like a dumb blonde. That's like the whole thing of it. I was thinking about all these other '90s movies that I saw way more than this, obviously because I just saw it. But remember, in the '90s, trial movies were like really big.
Hmm.
They had
John
a shit,
Grisham.
yeah, they had a shitload of dramas, like serious ones, The Firm. But then they had the silly ones. So they had
John
like
Grisham.
Jury Duty, Pelican Brief, and all that. Yeah, but then they had the silly ones like Jury Duty, and then they had the my
Liar, liar.
oh, I forgot about Liar Liar, yeah. But my cousin Vinny,
Hmm.
there's a scene in that where Marissa Tomei is like the aha moment, like
Hmm.
so like the whole like in there's no tires on the whatever, the what type of car was it?
Yeah, they actually showed
Skyline.
out. They showed out a movie in like law school, like
Yeah.
in different law schools, as like to teach people basic like courtroom procedure and how like to go about presenting a trial and et cetera, et cetera.
But that movie I watch like every other week. It's always on. So that's like the type of movie they would always play at night, and I would watch it. But this is the opposite. Legally Blonde, I would always skip over until this time. But there's that aha moment where she's like the Buick Skylar, the whole thing, and then it's like she wins the case. So she's like you would think that she wouldn't know what she's doing because she's like just a girl, But then
Yeah.
she's the opposite where she's like she's like the mechanic daughter. So like that's the thing where like you don't judge a book by its cover type thing. But with Legally Blonde, um, she has like the aha moment because it's similar. It's like
Hmm.
the whole thing with, oh, I didn't hear the gunshot because I was in the shower or something like that. But it's like you wouldn't have gone in the shower because like your perm would have been fucked up if you did take a shower. So she uses her
That
knowledge
was
of fashion.
Linda Cardellini was the daughter, I think,
So that's the aha
and
moment.
Ollie Lauder was the person on trial that they were defending, and the group, like the law professor, was supposed to be like her lawyer, and Luke Wilson's character was his like assistant or his on part of his legal team, and essentially they were like telling her like, yeah, like you're like dead to rights, but we'll defend you. You should take like the plea deal, whatever, whatever. And like Elle Woods was the one to say like, no, like I don't like I know you from your product, da 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 da. Like I don't think you did this. And Elle Woods was the only one that believed her.
Mm. And that reminds me of like another movie too. Like the jury duty was like similar, where like he fell backwards into solving the case with the Polish Shore. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Hmm.
All right, so like he solved the case by like he was doing it for the wrong reasons to stay to keep the trial going, but then he found out like the actual guy was innocent. So it's the same type of uh tomfoolery in these type of movies. Um, but yeah, I mean, I liked it. It was I'm not surprised that they made a sequel and then it went to Broadway. But it's just watching it now for the first time. I'm like, it felt like a sitcom.
Hmm.
It felt like Will and Grace. It felt like Will and Grace, like Clueless,
It
very
was
very over the top.
it was different, but you know what? It was um necessary because for one, on here we talk a lot about like the Me Too and like sexual harassment, sexual assault, and how it doesn't like you know overtly groping somebody or using your position like, oh, if you sleep with me you get this, da, 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 da. Like that's a part of like the Me Too thing. So they had like a scene where
Whoa.
Victor Garber.
Victor Garber's the guy, and again, he's the guy from Will and Grace.
Yeah. So
That
Victor Garber was like the professor. Victor Garber was Professor Callahan. So he invites her to his office to like discuss like
mm,
y- y- under the guise of like he was like congratulating her for like what she did in the courtroom that day. But in reality, like he tries to like come on to her and she like rejects him and like slaps his wrist and is like, no, but Selma Blair, whose character was L's ex boyfriend's new girlfriend, those two started to have like a friendship, but then she sees like him coming on to her, but she didn't see the rejection. So she was thinking like, oh, she's gonna sleep with the professor to, become the head of the class or whatever.
yeah, very sitcomish, like
Hmm.
not miscommunication, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
Um,
it was interesting because it today like that scene does hold up because it's like men of power, like be it your college professor or your boss, where in this case he was like both, and he was
mm,
like, oh well, the only way you're gonna get ahead is if you do this.
yeah,
um
and you know what? They used to like it was very playful back then too. Like they would like the whole idea of like being with your professor for women was kind of like it was like a badge of honor sometimes. Like they would very, very much they looked at it differently in a lot of these like movies I watched and like TV shows. Like it was kind of like, oh yeah, my professor, I dated my
yeah, because
my TA.
we talked about it with the Saved by the Bell,
Mm.
and I think we talked about it with some other show where it was kind of like the same thing, but it was important to show both sides, where it's like, here's the woman, and the guy is thinking like, oh, she's gonna do this because she wants to get here, and at the same time there's the woman who's played by Selma Blair that's like, oh, so she's going to do it and that's how she's gonna get ahead, and that's why even though I'm the person that's like studying and working hard and trying to like break this glass ceiling, like I'm not gonna get ahead because that's not what I want to do. So it showed both sides. So that's relevant to today's society.
And also like as silly as it may sound because it's about like fashion and stuff, but you can use the same example of fashion, but you can say, oh, have some other background that may seem um not connected to like your like situation like in like a courtroom scene, but like she used her personal background that other people didn't know about, you know. So that can be like a symbolism for like people who have other experiences other than yours, and she was able to like uh well use it, you know, like she used it for like something that you wouldn't think it was for.
Yeah, and
You know, it's as silly as it sounds, but it's also could be like a symbolism for
she
yeah.
essentially had to like win over like everybody else in the group. It keeps going back to I don't judge a book by its cover type of thing, because she won over. I think the only person that saw her value as a person and as a competent lawyer was Luke Wilson's character, and like the one guy in the group that nobody talked to because they thought he was like a weirdo. And it was just like, oh, like both of them like helped her out, and then Luke Wilson eventually became like her love interest, and she moved away from the guy she was chasing.
Yeah, and
And
they
not
had
only
her
that, but Selma Blair also like broke up with that guy.
yeah, and they had L like she was like a big fish in a small pond when she was doing fashion, and they're kind of like you can be more than because she had like a 4.0 and all that, and she was like kicking ass and undergraduate, and then she tried something. She jumped uh out of her comfort zone, and she grew. That's kind of a good message for. Now I'm thinking of like a girl back then, a girl who was like 8 or 9 or 10, watching it. I could see that kind of influencing them
Yeah, you could have that
in a
like
bigger
balance.
world. In a bigger world, though, like this is something you saw. It seems very, very basic and very simplistic and like very fairy tale. Where like she was going for the ring. It was like the evil prince, the evil prince that she thought she was supposed to be with, and then she meets like the other prince, who's
Like
like more on
Frozen.
her. I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, again, I've been thinking about this lately. There's an old saying that there's only like 6 stories you can tell, right? There's like 6 or 12 stories, and they're just told different ways. Uh, but it's always like the same. Like there's always like a few handful of structures of stories, and this is very much a fairy tale, not in a condescending way, but it's like a fairy tale. Any thoughts on
Oh, yeah, like I just want to talk about like the people in the movie, like Ali Lauder, who burst on the scene with like it was kind of like a small role in this movie, but she like burst on the scene with like Blues with the whipped cream and all of that.
yes?
But it came out like recently. Leonard Roberts, who I know from Drumline, the bad guy from Drumline, like he had a uncomfortable experience with her when they were both working on Heroes.
What happened?
Uh, just you know, a whole bunch of things, and he's black and she's white, so people kind of took like a racial like connotation to it. But at the same time, it was just like, well, she chose to be on Heroes with him as a love interest, and she was in obsessed with Beyonce and Idris Elba, where she was, the
Hmm.
other woman in their relationship. I don't know. It's one of those things. I just he said, she said type of thing. But I think he didn't name her alone. He also talked about the showrunner and the various producers and writers on the show were kind of like nasty to him.
I
But
remember that now.
that's what she's relevant for today. Another person on there, Jennifer Coolidge, who everybody knows as Stifler's mom. But she's a talented like
Oh yeah,
comedian,
Christopher Guest movies.
comedic actress. Yeah.
She's awesome in that. She was in Seinfeld. I think she was like kind of like she was going for that whole. I think she's a growling type, improv type
Yeah, but
background.
she was amazing in the movie. Like she was like her first friend as like her nail as a nail salon person, and L helped her out, so I thought that was important. Selma Blair, who's going through her own like physical stuff today. It was another movie where she was prominent in, going along with Cruel Intentions, going along with The Sweetest Thing, with Christina Applegate and Cameron Diaz. That's one of my favorite movies.
Well, we brought up the Saved by the Bell. Isn't like the dean in it? That's the same woman, right? Remember, the older woman?
Oh, what's her name? Holland Taylor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But I'm just thinking
yeah,
about it. 'Cause, like,
Holland
I know,
Taylor,
I
Dean
know it's,
McMahon.
I know it's 2001, but it definitely feels like a 90s movie. I know
Mhm.
how like decades aren't really like concrete. Like this is where it begins and ends. It kind of like seeps into the
Yeah, because
next.
I do remember I said that. I was like, "Oh, that's Dean McMahon," and that was the first time I seen her in something. And then, she became even more famous for being on Two and a Half Men as Charlie and his brother's mother.
Another competent, a very by the numbers sitcom, but does it well. And this again, this Legally Blonde reminded me of like a sitcom. I'm
Hmm.
surprised it didn't turn into a show. Maybe if you wiki it, maybe they were trying to turn into a show. It could have been a show. Could have your own practice. Blonde on blonde or blonde and blonde. I don't know.
Reese Witherspoon was like too big for that shit. No, Reese
Oh,
Witherspoon. Oh my god, I don't know what it is. Like whenever she has her hair like pulled back, I'm like enamored.
I'm fascinated because I'm not into her. Uh, what about the third one? Do you know anything about the third one? I only read that they were gonna make it.
I
You know
know they
anything?
made like a straight to DVD one with like the two annoying British girls from Zack and Cody, Sweet Life of Zack and
The
Cody.
Sweet Life.
I ignored that. I don't know. Are they making another one?
Yeah, they are. It comes out
Okay,
next year. But it's a
okay.
Mindy. Remember Mindy? I brought it up earlier. Mindy Kling. I
Oh,
forget that.
brother.
All right. So yeah, what's up? So they're gonna have it. It's the Brooklyn Nine-Nine and her. I guess it's probably a Fox Searchlight deal or whatever because they're with Fox, I think.
Mhm.
So I think it says May 2000 May 2022, but I have no other details. I'm going in it blind, but I don't know if you could make Legally Blonde reboot, how would you do it now? Would you do it like how the hell would you do it now?
Man, I would do it the same way. I think like the Butt Street crowd doesn't like the whole like chasing your
My man.
boyfriend type of thing.
But at
But
the end, oh yeah, but at the end, she did end up with a man anyway. Like it wasn't like at the end she realized
yeah,
she.
but what are you supposed to do in movies now? You're just supposed to end up like single. Like I
Uh,
was watching I was watching Breakfast Club, and
mm,
it's very valid points like with Judd Nelson and like Claire was I mean what are you supposed to do? Like, or a movie is supposed to just end up, I don't know. Are you
open
supposed to
ended.
just end up alone?
Well, Brian ends up writing
At the end
goddamn
of the day,
paper.
like you get the choice because, like, at the end of that movie, like the guy he wanted her, he was gonna dump Selma Blair for her, and she was like, "Nah, like I'd rather be with this guy that like actually like respects me and like appreciates me." So
And also with this last thing I'll say about Legally Blonde, it reminded me of you go into school, they make you choose a major pretty much, and then by the end, you don't even want to do it, and you find yourself in college. That's like kind of like a simplified thing of this, but you add in the whole uh girl power thing because it's 2001. I don't know. I think it holds up, even though I never saw it back then. Um, me going in, me watching it for the first time, like I want to get more into these movies that I missed in like 20 years ago. Maybe I thought I was too cool, or I just maybe just never watched a lot of these like teen type movies. Um, but that might be fun just to see like, because a lot of things do not hold up well.